All right, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, just want to welcome everybody. My name is Chip Zimmer. I'm with the Kentucky Division of Water, and I just want to welcome you to the December edition of the Kentucky Monthly Climate Perspective on Drought and Hydrologic Conditions. This is a put together by the State Climate Office for Kentucky, the Division of Climate Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky University. And our host today is Matt Dixon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him.
All right. Thanks, Chip. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving this year. I will tell you guys, the Dixon household, we successfully did not burn the turkey. We did not have a Griswold family Christmas turkey. So that was good to see. I was a little hesitant at first, but anyways, it was a rainy Thanksgiving. It did get chilly this past week after the holiday. But this week it's been warming up. So that's been good to see. We got today and tomorrow, really nice days, temperatures in the 60s. And if I remember right, I checked the Kentucky Mesnet right before I got on, and some were pushing 70 across Western Kentucky today. So something you typically don't see in December. We've definitely seen in the past, but not a whole lot. So we got a couple nice days ahead, but unfortunately, as I'll go over later in the webinar, we do have some rainy days ahead. So just get started. Webinar series is presented by the Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky University in partnership with the National Integrated Drought Information System and in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. Production delivery, because of the contributions of many partners, including Chip over the Division of Water and Megan down there at the Mesnet, and some of the ag information come from the UK Ag Weather Center. Our next webinar is scheduled for January 6th, 2022. The new year, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central. So this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Kentucky Climate Center YouTube page. And so go check that out. Also, I wanted to point out this picture right here. This was taken on November 14th. Once again, something we don't typically see. We're warm today, tomorrow. It was the opposite side of that spectrum in the middle of November, actually for much of November, but they're in the middle of November. This is Boone County, Kentucky, up in the northern bluegrass. We actually had some snow falling. Obviously, ground temperatures weren't very warm, so didn't really see that snow sticking at all. But cool to see that first snowfall this season nonetheless. So just as an outline, what we do every month, recent conditions, taking a look at ag impacts, the outlooks moving forward for December and the next 3 months. I'm going to focus a little bit on the winter forecast and something called La Nina. And then I'll go over a summary, then a question and discussion session. Before we get into that, I wanted to go back to October, because November was almost the direct opposite of October 2021. These maps over here on the left, they were put out by the National Centers for Environmental Information. They do this on a monthly basis. Great product. And the top image there is a look at statewide average temperature ranks. Most data for states across the United States is going to go back to 1895. So looking at this map, we saw the, let's see, 7th, 8th warmest October on record, going back to 1895 this year. And we saw a pretty wet October also in that bottom picture there. So very warm conditions in October, pretty wet conditions in October 2021. And you can see up there in the upper map, Ohio actually saw their warmest October on record, but that was the past. We got into November, things changed quite drastically. So first looking at precipitation, this is 30-day radar estimated precip and then overlaid with Kentucky Mesnet monthly accumulations across the map. And we didn't see near as much rainfall or precipitation in the month of November. That dark blue shade is 1 to 2 inches. We normally average about 3.5 inches during the month of November. And so some places less than half of that. You look over there in the Green River region of Western Kentucky, the Henderson area, Davies County area, you see a 1.3 inch monthly accumulation. Just not much rainfall for the month of November. Other areas down there in South Central Kentucky, Bowling Green area, northeast up into Lexington, a little bit more, 2.5 inch range, but still below normal, solidly below normal for the month of November. I will say I was going to talk about it later, but while I'm here, this isn't necessarily bad news for agriculture, trying to get crops out of the field. I think there were a lot of farmers and producers happy to see that. Saying that, we did have some headaches. It seemed like we always had some periodic rounds of light rainfall, and they were widespread in coverage. So did have some hiccups throughout the month when it comes to harvest, but overall, pretty light in the way of accumulations. Going back 60 days, taking into account October and November, once again, the brunt of the accumulations is right there in South Central Kentucky and heading up into the Bluegrass region. I showed you the previous map, 1 to 2 inches, 2.5 inches for most of the state. You see those numbers jump tremendously going back 60 days, seeing some yellow in the 8 to 10 inches, a lot of dark green, the 6 to 8 inches, but kind of going with the trend from November. That Green River region, Western Kentucky, still running lower compared to the rest of the state. Just focusing in on Henderson again, about 4.5 inches for that area. Going into the 90-day, going back to September, most of Central Kentucky and the Bluegrass, you guys see that this trend continuing. Central Kentucky and the Bluegrass leading the way. Anywhere from 9 to 13 plus inches in some cases for some of these mesonet stations. Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, you see those below normal departures or whatnot. They only saw 6 to 10 inches in most cases below normal for this time of year. So how far below normal has this been during these time frames? So looking at seasonal precipitation and the departure from normal, you might see some changes in these maps. Usually we talk about percent of normal, and I decided to go departure from normal today, but most of Kentucky, the past 30 days over across the eastern half is anywhere from 1 to 2 inches below normal, that yellow color you see there. You go over to the western half of Kentucky and you're starting to see quite a few areas getting into that 2 to 3 inch range below normal. Now, there are some portions over there, they're in the 3 to 4 inch range. They didn't see near the precipitation as some areas, but overall, looking at the map, most, if not everybody, is below normal for the month of December. We go to 60-day. We see some surpluses across the southern Bluegrass, Fayette County, surrounding counties in the 1 to 2 inch range, maybe more than that in some cases. But you look over in Western Kentucky, still seeing those deficits. 2 to 4 inches is pretty common, but you do see some patches of 4 to 6 inches below normal. And then you go down to 90 days and that trend pretty well continues. Central Kentucky and the Bluegrass above normal precip. Quite a few in that 2 to 4 inch above normal range, but you look over in Western Kentucky, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. Looking at the 4 to 6 inch below normal range for some folks out there. We look at some of these bullet points. I've talked about the dry November, but the preliminary data from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center shows Kentucky averaged 2.10 inches for the month. which is about 1.25 inches below normal for this time of the year. Yes, September, October, November, normally our driest months of the year. October and September were definitely not the case, but November has showed that drier nature. But then again, most significant precipitation deficits showing up across Western Kentucky. I want to put this in here. This is looking at precipitation departures for the state of Kentucky on a monthly basis. I put the preliminary data there for November 2021, where based on normals, we were 1.44 inches below normal for the month of November. This has been a big change. You look at the 5 months previously, we were all above normal each of those months, topping out in August whenever the state average was 1.67 inches above normal. Looking at the past year, looks like 4 months have been below normal. The rest 8 months above normal precipitation. But the months that we have had below normal precipitation have pretty well outdone the months we saw above normal precipitation. So I put that 12-month deviation from normal over on the far right. And with this preliminary data from November showing us over an inch below normal, our data for the year shows us we're approaching 3/4 of an inch below normal. So this is something different we haven't seen in quite a while. I want to say we've went something like 5 or 6 straight years of above normal rainfall here in Kentucky. I'll have to check that data again. Megan, Chip, correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems like it's been a while since we've seen a year with below normal rainfall. We'll see if that continues into December. Moving ahead. So looking at temperature departures across the state, these two maps on the top are from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. The one on the left looking at average minimum temperatures for the month of November, and the map on the right looking at maximum average temperatures for the month of November. These green shades, they're actually showing below normal departures. That was the case for most of Kentucky, looking both at average minimum temperatures and average maximum temperatures. More so the case for overnight minimums. Seeing several in that, or, around -4 degrees below normal. So, or 4 degrees below normal, sorry. Maybe not so much so during the day, but still running below normal. For the month, the preliminary data shows we averaged 43 degrees, which is about 3 degrees below normal. This would be good for the 26th coolest November on record, data going back to 1895. And the first month, the state temperature averages ran below normal since July. So just like precipitation, it's been a while since we've seen a month with below normal temperatures, as was below normal precipitation. The case for below normal temperatures was really pushed by some pretty significant cold air pushing into the area a couple times throughout the month. I put this image up here from last Tuesday, November 23rd, just before the Thanksgiving holiday. It was pretty chilly across the area. This was the coldest temperatures we've seen on a statewide basis this fall season thus far. And you see most across the state were in the upper teens to low 20s, but there were some folks, I think that's Meade County over there by Louisville, got down to 15. You see a 13 down there in Harlan. So there were some areas that dipped into the middle teens, especially low-lying areas, sheltered locations. So pretty chilly temperatures for this time of year. Luckily, we are warming up this week. So now, I wanted to go about this U.S. drought monitor a little differently based on some information we've gathered, specifically Chip has gathered this month. But this is the latest update to the U.S. drought monitor released today, December 2nd. Kentucky, we're still looking good. I think there's a small sliver of abnormally dry conditions showing up in southwestern Kentucky, there in the Purchase area. But for the most part, we're still looking good. Um, some other states, abnormally dry conditions to our southwest, encroaching on western Tennessee, over there in northeastern Arkansas. Some abnormally dry conditions showing up in southwestern Illinois. But for the most part, we're looking pretty good in Kentucky. I know I talked about departures from normal weren't looking that great on the 60 and 90-day time scales out in the western Kentucky. But in the next couple slides, I'm going to show you some other factors we have to take into account. So anyways, going to the next slide. This is a look at 4-week changes in the U.S. drought monitor. Kentucky, we really haven't had to deal with any abnormally dry conditions. So you see no change across our area and up into Indiana and Ohio. We have had a 1-class degradation over in western Tennessee and western Illinois, as I was saying earlier. So we have some dry spots forming around the state of Kentucky, but folks across the state haven't felt like we've really moved into abnormally dry category for the most part. So why is that the case? I tried to put all this on one slide this month. Top left, we're looking at calculated soil moisture ranking percentile. Most are looking pretty good across the state. You really don't see the below normal deficits showing up across the area. Looking at groundwater, same case for most of Kentucky. And looking at soil moisture in the 2 maps below from the Kentucky Mesnet, I got Crittenden County over in western Kentucky on the left, and I got Graves County farther south in western Kentucky on the right. That's the area we've been focusing in on the last month, as whether we need to expand abnormally dry conditions up that way. Soil moisture has ran fairly steady. We're not seeing much of a decline out that way. Like I said, farmers, for the most part, have enjoyed the dry month of November, getting harvest done out that way. It's just some facts. Another factor I want to talk about is stream flow. The 7-day average, we're not seeing any below normal stream flows out that way. We look at the 28-day average, maybe a little bit below normal showing up out there in the Purchase area, but for the most part, as Chip has been relaying in some of the emails on a weekly basis, some of the areas may be dry, but we may not consider them abnormally dry at this point. Now, we'll see what happens moving forward. The forecast is favorable for some rain, so that'll help out, but it is a forecast, so we'll see what happens. Looking at current flooding across the region, we're looking good. All gauges across the state are showing no flooding. Unfortunately, once we get to the outlook section, some of the forecasts aren't looking great. So we're good now, but we'll see what happens this winter. Now, look at severe weather. I got an email from Megan earlier. They develop a map at the Kentucky Mesnet showing the locations of severe weather across the state. And we were talking before this webinar. Believe this is the first time since we started this webinar. Correct me if I'm wrong, Megan. And 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, we haven't had any instances of severe weather to put on that map. So I would say that's awesome news. But I wanted to include this graph on here. Megan talked about it last month, looking at severe thunderstorm and tornado warning counts for the state of Kentucky through 2021 thus far and compared to recent years. And I thought it was cool to see. We definitely don't want to see severe weather. And for the most part, that's what's happened in 2021. I looked at years going back to the year 2000. And 2021 is down there at the bottom. We want to see that. We've seen I'm just look at the map, under 250 total severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings for the year across the entire state of Kentucky. Now, I mean, this is below 2001, 2013. So we really haven't seen a severe weather, I'll say drought, since 2013, or like this since 2013. So love to see it. Hope it continues this way. November, December, I shouldn't say December. November is usually a secondary small peak in severe weather across the lower Ohio Valley as we transition from the warmer temperatures in the year to the cooler temperatures. But we've been lucky. We really haven't seen severe weather this fall. So moving on to Kentucky ag impacts. Harvest is wrapping up across the area. It's been a slow go this year. Looking at crop progress there in the middle, soybeans harvested now sits at 89%. Last year we were at 99 or 90% this time. So, and we're just below that 92% 5-year average. Winter wheat seeded 93% this week, nearly the entire crops in the ground. Last year, 92%. So just running slightly behind. We look at Kentucky soybeans harvested and soybean progress down there in the lower left and lower right. And there in October, we were running behind. You see the line for 2021 is blue there. Compare that to the 5-year average, but you've seen the difference in those lines narrow as we've gotten through November. So as I was saying, drier month of November, more opportunities get out into the fields, so on and so forth. Looking at soybean progress over there on the right, again, you see that that gap during the month of October, our weather conditions in place, and we've narrowed that gap. But anyways, looking at livestock condition, pasture condition, so on and so forth across the state, we're looking pretty good going into the winter months. 2019, I always like to compare to that. That was our drought year, driest September on record for the Bluegrass State. I think we only averaged 22 hundredths of an inch for the month. Definitely wasn't the case this year. It was pretty wet until we got into November, but livestock mostly in that good to excellent category, something we want to see. Not to say that can't take a downhill turn as we get into the winter months, especially with these outlooks we have ahead. But something else we like to see is pasture condition is relatively fair to good at the moment. Very little in that very poor to poor category. So we like to see it. I think we're at a pretty good spot right now. Harvest is wrapping up. This is the last Kentucky crop report for the 2021 season. They are now transitioning to monthly reports, so be on a lookout for that. Before I go into the outlooks and whatnot, I wanted to point out the soil moisture up at the top. Top soil moisture, according to the crop report, is rated 81% adequate, 13% surplus. Subsoil 82% adequate, 10% surplus. You look at the map to the right, November 28th, we're looking at some of the highest levels in that adequate category for the year, and still a good chunk in that surplus category. So we are pretty moist going into the winter season. That could be bad news. Quantitative precipitation forecast the next 7 days. We're looking at quite a bit of rainfall. We had a wet October. We had a dry November. It looks like we might be shifting in the other direction again for December. Next 7 days, this is suggesting my tongue's getting twisted. 1.5 inches plus for most of the state. Now looking ahead, today, tomorrow, looking pretty good. Saturday's looking pretty good. Late in the day, Sunday into Monday, that's whenever things start to go downhill. And then another system passing through the area sometime next mid work week. And so these systems, quite a bit of rainfall, maybe something we don't want to see at this time of year. 1.5+ inches is quite a bit over a 7-day time frame. So going into 6 to 10 day outlooks, this is from December 11th through 11th. Look at near normal to above normal temperatures across the state. Darker shades is higher confidence. So these are lighter shades in the state of Kentucky. So not the highest confidence in the world, but still trending near to above normal over that time frame. And then we have somewhat of a bullseye over Kentucky whenever it comes to precipitation. So all that rainfall moving into the area next week is showing up in this outlook. Going on to the 8 to 14 day outlooks. I told you darker shades, higher confidence. We're seeing those shades go darker for the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook for December 9th through the 15th, looking at that second full week of December. So warmer temperatures winning out. We look at the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook. Bullseye just above Kentucky, but generally leaning above normal precip. So as opposed to November, dry and cool. The first half of December, warm and wet. Going on to the December outlook as a whole, trending above normal. Temperatures going with that first half of December. That's been trending warmer. And I would guess, haven't looked at the narrative, but I would guess that's predominantly what we're basing this monthly outlook on, the first half of the month. But looking at monthly precipitation, it's interesting to see. You saw the 6 to 10 day outlooks, 8 to 14 day trending above normal. We're not necessarily seeing that in this December outlook. Kentucky is all white, which symbolizes equal chances for a above near normal or below normal precipitation. So we'll see how the second half pans out, but the first half hinting at above normal temperatures and above normal precip. Now, looking at the seasonal outlook, I want to spend a little bit more time here. These were updated on November 18th. We're looking at December, January, and February. It is calling for above normal temperatures and above normal rain or precipitation in the Ohio Valley region. Now, whenever we look at these maps, once again, confidence isn't the highest. We do have some lighter shades across the area. Whenever you look at these maps, this does not mean that the forecasters are saying the entire 3-month period, the entire winter between December and February is going to be warm and wet. We will still see ups and downs, especially with a weak La Nina. I'm going to explain here in a second in place. So whenever this 3-month period is done, they expect for that 3-month period, we were warmer than normal and wetter than normal. But like I said, that's not to say we can't have a cold week here and there. We can't have a dry week here and there. So just something to keep in mind. These seasonal outlooks for the winter are mainly based on this La Nina climate pattern. La Nina is based on cooler than normal sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. That's what we're seeing right now. Hence, we are in a La Nina advisory. The impacts to La Nina are mainly seen late fall into the winter months. And a typical winter La Nina pattern is seen there on the right. These cooler sea surface temperatures are going to have an impact on the overall upper level pattern. You see the polar jet stream there dipping into the Ohio Valley, results in a wetter and warmer climate across the bluegrass state for the most part. This would be most strongly associated with a strong La Nina. Isn't looking that strong this year, so we will see deviations, but mostly that seasonal outlook is based on this La Nina pattern. But something, well, I'll go into this real quick. This is what we call a double dip La Nina. I'll put that in quotes up there. A lot of people are saying that. This is the second year in a row we've seen a La Nina over the winter season. This is a look at some maps from, I might pronounce his name wrong. I apologize if I did. Mike Halpert from the Climate Prediction Center. He's the deputy director there. He wrote a nice article recently where he went over these precipitation and temperature maps. I'll show temperature on the next slide. But looking at here, the winter precipitation patterns during the 7 strongest second year La Nina events since 1950. For the most part, Kentucky is usually wetter than normal, but there are some years. We look at 1884 to 85 over here in the upper right. We did see below normal precip across the eastern half of the state, still above normal across the western half. But for the most part, most of these maps are showing above normal departures. Now we only have 7 to choose from, so there isn't a whole lot of La Nina or double dip La Ninas we can go off of, but still most of them are showing above normal departures. Looking at temperatures, most showing above normal temperatures again. 1955, 56, closer to normal. 84, 85, we were below normal. But again, 99, 2000, 2011, 12 was our most recent double dip La Nina above normal temperatures in place. Now, this adds up with what we've been seeing in Kentucky recently. I wanted to put some images I've developed over the past week or so for another presentation I did yesterday in French Lick, Indiana. But looking at our winters over the past decade. So first, looking in the upper left, excuse me, I have the winter seasons, the past 10 winter seasons going back to 2011, 2012. There on the left, you can see average temperatures for the winter season and the departures from normal for each of those winter seasons. And then over on the right, I have the average state accumulated precipitation. Sorry, I'm going to take a quick drink real quick. Losing my voice, and then the departures from normal associated with each of those winter seasons. Looking at temperatures, we've generally the past 5-6 years been above normal for the most part. 2021, not so much the case. We did have a pretty cool February this past year. If you remember, we had 3 winter storms pass through the area along with some pretty cool temperatures. So we did see some cooler temperatures in 2021, but based on our recent winter trends, we have been relatively warmer. That's not to say we can't have a cooler winter now and again, like we did this past winter season. But looking back to 2015-16, most of the years have ran near to above normal and quite a bit above normal in some cases. You got to go back to really winter 2014-2015, where we saw some really cold temperatures in February that year. You see those well below normal temperature departures. Looking at the scatter plot over on the right, I plotted 30. I went back 30 years to 1991, plotting every winter season on here based on the average temperature and average state precipitation accumulation that winter season. And just as an example, 2018, 2019 up here in the upper right, that winter season, our average temperature was a little bit above 39 degrees. Our average state precip accumulation was a little above 19 inches. So if you draw a line right above 19 inches to the right and right to the right of 39 degrees up, you see 2018-19 show up there in the upper right. Split this graph into 4 sections based on the 1991 to 2020 winter temperature average and precipitation average. And you get these 4 boxes here. Any boxes in the upper right contain years or winter seasons with above normal precip and above normal temperatures. And you notice I highlighted the past 6 years in red. 5 of the past 6 years show up in that upper right-hand box. 2021 is right here, kind of splitting these two boxes over here on the left of above normal precip, below normal temperatures in the upper left, and below normal precip, below normal temperatures in the lower left. But predominantly the past 5-6 years are showing up here in the box of above normal precip and above normal temperatures. This is having an impact on ag. I did a presentation yesterday, start thinking about preparing for this, but looking at Lexington growing degree day accumulations, again, growing degree day accumulations relates temperature to crop development and growth. And something you might have seen several of the past 5 or 6 years is green up with winter wheat occurring earlier in the year. And you can see that on this map here, Lexington growing degree day accumulation since 2011. 2011 through 2015, I got highlighted in blue, 2016 to 2020 highlighted in red, and 2021 on there highlighted in black. Those 5 years of 2016 through 2020, they're hitting the 500 growing degree day accumulation level much quicker in the year compared to those previous 5 years of 2011 to 2015. Hence, we saw winter wheat hitting developmental stages much earlier in the year than what we're used to, which made the winter wheat crop more susceptible to sub-freezing temperatures, these spring freezes and frost across the area, which did cause some problems. I think it was 2017 and 2020, we had a late freeze that year in April and May. So that was a problem. Looking at the picture in the lower right, this is from February 2019 from my coworker, Dr. Jackson. He's a livestock systems extension specialist, but he owns his own cattle operation over in Mercer County, just west of Lexington. And this picture is becoming more common and more common with these wet and wetter winters in place, and mud is becoming a huge issue. And anyways, since this picture, Josh has added some concrete pads for those feeding areas, trying to reduce this mud. And this might be something producers want to consider moving forward. These all-weather surfaces, there's different ways, different materials you can use for these all-weather surfaces, but something you may consider to mitigate some of these mud problems and the energy requirements that go up during these muddy situations. And these kind of years, you want to have high quality feed in place, have it tested if that's going to be a problem this upcoming winter season. But anyways, I think there's a lot of livestock producers out there that as much as Kentucky residents might want a warmer winter, it may not be the case for some of those livestock producers that want that ground to freeze a little bit. So anyways, that was the winter season. Looking ahead, monthly stream flow outlook for December, we're looking all right. We're in that near normal range. Nothing above normal in the forecast. That's good to see. But moving on to the seasonal flood risk outlook, I told you about the seasonal weather conditions in place, looking at the temperature and precipitation outlooks above normal rainfall. You combine those two, it doesn't present a great outlook for seasonal flooding. So this was put out recently for the months of December, January, and February. Obviously, I just showed you monthly for December. That's looking good. So mainly we're looking at these issues that started rising in January and February. Out in Western Kentucky, a 50% chance of exceeding river flood levels. Minor long-range flooding out that way. We even have a red square showing up there out Eastern Kentucky for some moderate long-range flood risk. So We'll see how this develops going over the winter months, whether that warmer and wetter pattern verifies. It's not a definite outlook. So like I said, we could see some deviations. We'll see what happens. Wildfire, just quickly, no problems with the wetter October and just periodic rounds of rainfall during the month of November. So wrapping up here, we had a dry November across the Bluegrass State, exact opposite of what we saw during October. Only light periodic rounds of widespread rainfall. Temperatures ran below normal, marking the first month this has happened since July. So we broke some streaks during the month of November for temperature and precipitation. Kentucky ag, we have had a slow harvest this year. I'm going to be on the lookout for yields. I'm hearing they're pretty decent this year. We'll see if that verifies. But we are getting close to wrapping up for 2021. Winter wheat in the ground. We'll look forward to 2022. Temperatures will trend above normal for the month of December. There is some uncertainty which way we will go in the way of precip. Above normal for the first half of the month. We'll see what happens over the second half. And then with this La Nina climate pattern in place, looking at a wet and warm winter season ahead. But again, we can see deviations from that typical climate pattern. We'll see what happens. So with that, I'm going to close up. Again, our next regularly scheduled webinar, January 6, 2022, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have questions after a question and answer session, you want to get back to us, you have our emails over there on the right. And once again, just as a reminder, this Kentucky Drought and Hydrologic Impact Reporter might be something we really want to use the next month or so, monitoring how Western Kentucky, that dryness develops over there. Once again, this isn't all about drought on this impact reporter. We'd like to know if you're excessively wet also. So that's good to see also whenever we're developing maps for the U.S. drought monitor. So thank you again. I'll send it back to Chip. If anybody has questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or I'll take a look at the chat box also. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Matt. So like you said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask them, or you can enter them into the chat box. All right, then I guess we'll go ahead and finish up. So I hope everybody has a holidays, and we'll see everybody back here on January 6th.